Hello, gang. How y'all doing today? Happy Wednesday. Let's do a quick audio and video check. You guys can see and hear all right? Hi, Boom Bop. Welcome. Oh, you are too kind. I'm really glad you enjoy it. Hi, Irina. Sarah. Awesome. Great. Okay, well, since we finished the last one, I've already posted that. I'm going to start up something new, and I'm not really sure what it'll be. I'm just kind of pooping around here, prepping a canvas. So we'll figure it out together as a team. It'll be good. How y'all doing today? Everybody doing all right? Staying safe? The world has gone even more mad since the last time we talked, which is nutty. Great. Glad it's all working. So, what I was thinking with this one, I kind of had a forest shot in mind. I was kind of thinking about maybe something Stalin-Hagi. Is that even a word? I don't know. I just made it up. We'll stick with it. So, I'm not sure quite yet, but I want to do something shapy and organic. Tuckered out. Ah, I hear you. I'm very tired too. I've been up late pretty much every night for the last 4 or 5 nights. Just can't get off the news, off Twitter. Kinda kooky. Hopefully we'll get some better rest soon. Let's see. New layer. Yeah, it feels almost weird to try to be doing just normal stuff. I was kind of thinking about going downtown today to to add my voice to the protests going on, but I live with a group of people, and it's not a good idea considering pandemic is still going on. Hi, Damage. Salute to Alia. Really glad that you guys joined me. It's awesome. Yeah, social media is the pits right now, but I feel like this is something I can't really look away from. You know, I don't know how many of you are American, but I think this kind of stuff happens everywhere, but it's definitely been part of my life for quite, basically since being a mid teen. I've had to deal with the cops. I gotta add my support. Even though it is damn draining. I'm gonna kick on some music for myself. Got the headphones on and they're not even operating. Alright, let's see. This might be better. Agreed, Arena. That is the truth of it. I'm wearing signing on, but again, I was looking at the news. I have no idea if it even works, but I think you guys can see what I'm listening to on my Spotify on that page. I have no idea if that little app thing works. Probably not. Okay. Got a little bit of something going on in the background now. I'm just mussing up the canvas. I got a rough idea. It should be on my on the main page for Twitch. There's an add-on that I added so that you could see my Spotify while I'm streaming, but that way you can listen to my kooky bleeps and bloops songs. I love me some bleeps and bloops. I'm doing kind of just a rough out, kind of testing out a composition here. Not entirely sure about it. Yeah, things here are crazy, but the solidarity is incredible. I mean, every state has protests, and there are protests supporting this around the world in different countries. I haven't seen anything like it. Of course, I haven't seen anything like the reaction from the administration either. So, a little kooky, as I've mentioned. I don't really have a lot of words for it, and I don't want to get into it too deep, because ultimately I'm still here to paint. You are absolutely right on that, Irina. I'm gonna try and stick with big brushes and not depend too much on textures yet. I do know one of the things I saw a picture earlier where somebody had painted like a street scene and they showed like a distinct change in elevation for the perspective. So I kind of want to do something like that with this. Of course, I don't have that image up, so I don't have reference for that. I just remember kind of roughly how it worked. Hopefully we can get away with that here too. A lot of it will just be about changing angles. How do since I don't actually watch that much Twitch, how do some of the other artists do this? Are they like mile a minute talking, or do they kind of buckle down and paint and kind of just hush up? How does it work? I'm kind of curious. What's your guys' experience been? What do you prefer? Me personally, I tend to like to just see the work. I think that kind of goes back to my schooling. I just wanted to see it done. Overt explanation kind of annoyed me. Just get to the point, jackass. Oops. depending on the artist. Some don't talk. You like to listen, whatever the topic. Okay, that's good to know. Painting and narrating thought. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it didn't sound like I was just kind of randomly meandering or something. I mean, that is what I'm doing, but I was hoping that it would be something appreciated rather than annoying. So that's good to know. Yeah, I try to keep my at least what I'm doing. I try to have logic for it so that I can explain it on some level. No, that's totally fair. I'm happy to share thoughts if you are interested in hearing them. I can bloviate for days. You guys have seen it. You've heard it. Can you see me? Can you hear me? All right, so I'm kind of experimenting a little bit here. I'm going to be doing something I do generally with characters, and you've seen me do with characters, but I really don't do with backgrounds. I tend to get just shapy with backgrounds, and you've seen me just kind of fill them out from there, or texturize them up, or whatever. This time, what I'm going to do is, like characters, I'll get the big ideas across, and then I'm going to do a line drawing on top and kind of be more decisive, and then I'll paint again, and that's the plan. Who knows if I can stick with that, but we'll see. I want a color that is neutrally contrasting here for this next bit. See if my contrast that I want to make this feature it is neutral but has enough of a specific color contrast, meaning in this case directly opposite on the color wheel. I won't need much to make it pop up against the background that's going to be really heavily green. And the greens are going to stay desaturated in the shadows. I think I'm going to let the greens be saturated in the light, kind of as I've hinted at that grass over there. But I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully this will work out. Again, this is an experiment. I'm not really sure what will happen. That's definitely going to be a problem. You can see the values and the colors matching the ground. We don't want that. If you're confused and you don't know what this is going to be, don't worry. I am also confused and have no idea what this will be. All right. It's one of the things I'm trying to work on also is my composition in general, because I feel like that's a bit of a weakness. Okay, do I have enough? Let's see. Let's get a little pencil action going on. Set it to multiply. I'll just leave it the same color. I know I want kind of a sweep there. So this is something that I do a lot, and I know I've mentioned it in class before. And I think it's something everyone does. You find ways to organize information. We're just pattern finding monsters. And I've done it again. I've kind of, my main kind of split here is almost right down in the middle. So I'm going to try and transform this background sloppily. It's not going to be pretty, but I want to get more shape dominant so that it's not just, I'm not just splitting things down the middle. If you want to make your paintings boring, guarantee the best way to do it is to make the same size stuff everywhere. Maybe that's a little bigger. Got an even number of pink shapes in there. We'll see. We'll get to that. Another thing I've talked about a lot when I've shown doing background work is to imply the zigzag of your planes. It's kind of like a easy hint at overlap, but just kind of going back and forth with the rhythms and diminishing the size between your zigzags, making them smaller as they go back. It creates the illusion of distance and depth for almost zero effort. So that's one to take advantage of as far as I'm concerned. I want to do kind of a path where the brush ends here. Irina, it's an old academic rule about composition in terms of rhythms and shapes, is that you want to avoid even numbers of objects, even numbers of features or rhythms. It's because it can, when it's even, it can feel repetitious, weirdly, but when it's odd, I guess, it gives it that a feeling of organic harmony. It's not, I don't think it's a hard, like super hard and fast rule, but it's an easy one to employ if you want to have the feeling of organic, natural diversity in an image. So yeah, if something's feeling stiff and overly balanced in my paintings, I will sometimes double check to make sure that I don't have an even number of things. It's a very common rule that people use, and they stick with it because it does work. I think it's an issue if you have in mind a specific scene you want to paint before starting. I don't think that's an issue at all, to have something in mind before starting and avoiding thumbnails. I think it's a good idea to try thumbnails, and this may be a prime example because I didn't do any thumbnails for this, but I've always kind of found the obsessive thumbnailing process to slow me down, being overly iterative. So if I am going to do little thumbs, it'll probably be just a couple. It's always been like that. In school, we would have classes where you had to do like 100 thumbnails before you could even start thinking about the final. And I found almost always, just about every time, the first 3 were the best ones. So I don't know. It's different philosophies, different design philosophies. I don't think there's any best way to do it. There's just different ways to do it, and whatever works best for you. If you do find that this would be a good a good way to check if you're doing it the right way for you. If you find that your images are boring because there's not enough going on, or you're struggling because not enough has been figured out, or you don't yet trust your design aesthetic and understanding how to break up the shapes and arrange those abstractions on a flat plane, maybe you do need to do more thumbnails. And there's nothing wrong with doing thumbnails to examine your possibilities. I mean, you shouldn't think of a thumbnail any more than that. I have seen many thumbnails that are really over rendered and overdone, that it should really be just basic shapes, essential values, only what's necessary to communicate the idea of what the abstraction would be. If you're overdoing that, then you might be doing it wrong. So I hope that helps. The way I work personally, I don't do a ton of thumbnails, but I do think about what my illustration will be a lot before I even get started. It's what I call my percolating phase, which I actually, whoops, God damn it, I keep doing this, which I actually kind of map into even my invoicing and things like that. That's how much this is part of my pipeline. But what I do personally, let's say, okay, so this illustration that I'm working on right now, let's say a client came to me and they said, okay, we want to have some artifacts in a field, Simon Stalenhagi-esque. What can you do with that? Let's see an idea for that. So instead of just doing tons of little thumbnails, which might actually be a pretty effective way to do a Stalenhag-esque thing, what I tend to do is I'll find images, or I'll scroll through a Google search, and I won't even download anything. What I'll do is I'll just scroll quickly and kind of, I don't know, what's the word? I don't know, like quick process, Robocop it, just zooming through stuff, and whatever pops, just file away that interest or that idea. If it's something that really grabs me, I will download it. But all I'm doing is I'm just looking for these potential images that can spark an idea, because an idea is only really a fresh idea. There is no such thing as one that just comes out of your head, naked and newborn. That there is no such thing. All ideas are a result of you combining 2, 3, or more ideas into something fresh. That's basically the essence of creativity. So you can take, let's say, I don't know, a picture of a bird, and then combine that with, I don't know, cyberpunk, and now you've got a new idea. Do you see what I'm saying? So what I'll do is I just do this fast processing, and I just get these images in my head, and I just let them sit there in the back of my head. So my percolating phase will be not actively thinking about a solution to the design. I will instead just let those things bump around in the back of my head while I'm doing something else, usually something completely unrelated. Or maybe I'll be sketching on another project or anything. And sometimes this process can take a couple of days even. And then I'll sit down when an idea kind of forms. There'll be a hint of something like, oh, this would be an interesting approach to this. And then I sit down with that and I start there. Then I might do reference hunt for that specifically. But it's not, my thumbnailing and the idea for the image happens in my head without me drawing it down. It's good because it's fast. I don't need anything else there to do it. I can do it while I'm driving or whatever else. It's bad because if something jars me, like if I get shocked by some, I get in a car accident while I'm driving, I will lose it all. Like it's all in your RAM. It's not in the deep memory. It's just sitting there at the top, kind of cycling and touching everything else and bumping around. But if something big happens, I can lose it. And that has happened to me before. So, there are flaws, I guess, with everybody's method. But yeah, anyway, long-winded. But that's basically how I come up with ideas. I don't like this angle. I want it more extreme. Yeah, that feels more natural. Oh, we got some questions. Optimistic about the future. Things are tough. Oh, yeah. We're launching shit into space right now, which is pretty cool. The cool thing about the concept of the future is that there will always be a future, whether you're in it or not. This will continue. There will be tragedies and triumphs. It's just the nature. That's just life. So I think with these kind of artifacts, I want to do just simple shapes. I'm thinking spheres because this image that I saw is it has spheres in it, but I don't know. I liked the overlap of the spheres. Huh, it's starting to heat up today. Getting a little sweaty. God damn it. You know what? I will just save it there and call it good. Do I enjoy painting perspective-heavy environments? No. This kind of ties into what I was talking about with battle scenes. I don't really enjoy painting battle scenes. It's for me, the things that I really enjoy are reactionary moments, like interpersonal moments, person to person or creature, whatever, but relationships, that kind of thing. That's what I really dig, is the relationships of stuff. Cool for cool's sake has never been a really big focus for my work. I don't know why. I feel like maybe because cool... This is a tough one to explain because I've never actually sat and thought about why I prefer one over the other. But I think what I think about it might be that cool is fleeting. It can be a fad, but relationship work, like the interplay between peoples in a scene, that story, that narrative to me is deeper in general and more. It's more long-lived, if that makes sense. I'm not talking about keeping my artwork for archival purposes, but it's one of those things where it's a universal. People can relate to it. Not to say I don't love like cool sweeping giant scenes. I do dig those. For me to create them, like, this is not a common image for me because there needs to be more narrative to it. I think that's something I really like about Stollenhag's work, is that he does do both all in one shot, and he does it with a really excellent skill. And I love him and hate him for it. He's so good. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, story is really, really important, in my opinion, to what we're doing. It is narrative. Don't mind my ice clinky sippies. I got this monster sippy cup. These steel, I don't know, whatever you call them. The ice stays in that thing for hours and hours and hours. It's incredible. Do I have a favorite painting from all the paintings I've done so far? Ooh. Not really. Honestly, I tend to forget my work. If you've ever sat through any of my discussions on imposter syndrome, my particular version of it is very specific in that I don't acknowledge my successes. So I don't even think, once something is done, I don't ever really think about it again, and it has to be put in front of me for me to even consider it. So I know that's not the answer you're looking for. I guess the pieces that stand out for me are the ones that other people respond to strongly enough that I'm regularly reminded about it. I like the pieces that I've done that had a solid story or had, I don't know, some kind of personal element in it. I do like this. I do enjoy it when I'm ahead of the curve in terms of not a style, but a situational concept. You know, like when I did do some early Magic cards that where they hadn't really started talking about age or gender or things like that, and I was ahead of the curve on trying to be more inclusive with some stuff, heavy mages and things like that. I like those ones because they stood out. They were different. Let me do another pass, and this time I'm gonna just figure out darks really sloppily. I don't care right now about detailing. I just want to know where my darkest darks will be. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. This is totally an experiment. I have no idea what's going to come of this. Get better at storytelling. Oh, Arena, that's an amiable goal. Well done. I think that's probably the most important one. Focus on your storytelling. What I find interesting about learning storytelling is that so much of the knowledge base is outside of what we do, and I think that that's important to get. It can, especially with concept art, but illustration as well, it can get really, really insular, and it's just about kind of the language of our own people, you know what I mean? And the thing about storytelling is there are so many other disciplines that adhere to or depend on great storytelling. So there's a lot of information out there that's not what you'd expect, that comes from places you wouldn't expect. Really valuable stuff. For a complete beginner, would you recommend how to draw paint first or learn 3D package? 3D first or drawing and painting first? I think you could probably definitely painting should be last. I think you could probably do drawing and 3D simultaneously and get a lot out of that, because there is a relationship between creating the illusion of three-dimensionality with just line and form, and using a tool that is 3D to help train your brain to think in 3 dimensions, to think spatially rather than just in a flat surface. So there can be a combination between those two things. I think that once you get into shaders and learning, how materials work and things like that, that would definitely tie into painting. I think they can be learned hand in hand. Trying to learn applications hand in hand can be tough. Like if you're trying to teach yourself Photoshop and a 3D application at the same time, that's going to hurt. It's going to be a painful and difficult experience, not because it's impossible, but because there is a lot of minutia to the different programs. For example, this is just an easy one, but I'm learning Blender, as we've talked about in the last few Twitches, and when I'm done practicing with Blender for the day and I go back to Photoshop, I'll find that I'm using the shortcuts wrong, and that can cause that disconnect can really create problems for you and slow you down, or it can even mess up your image. So one of the things I've been trying to do in order to keep those things separate in my mind is I use the keyboard for shortcuts when I'm working with Blender, and exclusively. I had originally set up my Nostromo to do it, but I started getting mixed up between the programs, and now I only use the Nostromo for Photoshop and the keyboard for Blender, and that's helped out. So it's one of those ways you can keep it kind of separate in your head. It's just applications at the same time can be tough. Concepts at the same time, no problem. You like the gold filigree? Yeah, that's a pretty popular one. I like it too. There's things I don't like about it. Like, for me, it was kind of an easier illustration in that I just knew exactly what needed to be done with it. I'd already worked pretty strongly in, I can't remember the world in Magic where everything was metal, Mirrodin. And so I had already kind of done a ton of experimenting with how to quickly render metal, and I had all of that down pretty well. So the filigree familiar was pretty easy in comparison. The background was pretty sloppy. So I do like it because it's cute. Like, the character is really, really cute. I like how that turned out. But mostly I like it because it found a home with fans, which is important to me. I'm the reason you got into D&D. Awesome. Oh, totally. And then if with the D&D, you're saying one of your most favorite things in the world now is the D&D and the acting aspect of it. So in that same way, to help with my storytelling, my narrative stuff, I started looking at on YouTube at sort of acting workshops and things like that, and studying how they think about things, because how the different disciplines approach narrative is where you can get fresh ideas. It's where you can approach whatever it is you're doing in an interesting way. So like I've talked about it with our character, how to arrange your characters in the scene and how to pose them and things like that, and how I tied a lot of what I've learned about mime and stage acting and things. Whoops, goddamn, I keep hitting this mic. Sorry, guys. I've tied those things together and brought them into painting and drawing, and it was because I decided to listen to Ian McCaig's approach on that, and I learned a lot through acting about how to approach narrative for painting and drawing. So D&D is great because you get to do it yourself. You get to try and yes and a story and develop stories with somebody else in a sort of communicative way. And it's a great way to build story and useful. Yeah, Blender is super dope. I'm really digging it. I know enough now to know exactly how much I do not know, and it kills me. The things that I want to do, and I just can't. So it's my understanding is good enough now that when I'm working in Blender, when I hit a problem, I can pretty easily go onto YouTube and find a solution. But the problem is that I still have to stop my workflow pretty regularly and go and find help, because I got stuck usually with UI or process. Process is so tough with 3D. So I'm looking at my navigator, trying to see the overall scene. I'm going to blast this with some glazes and see if they help me out a little. Do I still enjoy traditional painting? I love traditional painting, but I don't use it so much now for, I don't use it for production so much. I use it meditatively. So on Saturdays now, I've been trying to do little art things by myself here, where I'm not trying to work on a project, and I'm not trying to study to learn something. All I want to do is just observationally paint, and man, it feels so good to do. It's just a good reminder that you can do that. And ultimately, I mean, it's still, you're like flexing muscles, stretching them out, things that you need to keep honed for the job. If you can approach it meditatively, I find it's pretty nice. Let's change the color of these guys. That did not work. Nope. What? Polygon. Jesus, that was weird. Nope. Damn it. I did the undo. Let's try that again. The problem with the red is it's starting, like, they're starting to feel like just like giant cherries or something. Can I elaborate a little bit on what glazes are? So glazing is a traditional technique that comes from oils and acrylics in particular, but you can do it with the more water-based paints as well. Essentially, glazing means to unify a value underneath, or unify a variety of values underneath one value and possibly one tint or glaze of color. It comes from, traditionally, using a glaze would be you would have a painting and let's say the colors were too chalky or there was too much difference between the lights and the darks in an area. You could go in with a very, very thinned out, not very opaque color. Usually darker, that would be a glaze, or if it's lighter and a little bit more opaque, that's a tint. And these are just, it's just vocabulary. It's super not important for what we're doing, but I'm explaining what a glaze is. And you would use it with this heavy medium to go on top of something that was opaque. And what it does is it knocks things down. It brings them together in either light, either towards the light or towards the dark. But the glaze is just meant to incrementally bring something down to unify. And then you can also use glazes to add color, to colorize, and things like that. So there are whole ancient techniques that were built just on glazing, where what you could do is paint your entire painting in black and white and then colorize just through glazes after it's dried. It was a traditional way of doing things, one of the traditional ways. But in a digital sense, what I'm using the glazing in the philosophical sense rather than the literal one. But it's another layer, and I can do it either with a layer set to normal, it can be set to screen, whatever. It's just using lightly a bit of mildly opaque color to unify either value or color or both. Does that make sense? Something that I start in 3D and paint over the top. Oh man, that's basically what I'm trying to teach myself right now. If I figure it out, I will do a video on it, I promise. Right now, the big problem is just that it's always tempting to leave more the 3D than you should. And I know that, and so I overcompensate by not leaving enough 3D, and I end up just painting the whole damn thing again. So I just use the 3D as sort of an elaborate way of figuring out my perspective. And that's not necessarily the most economical use of that pipeline, I don't think. But I'll figure it out. And once I kind of get something going, there are a lot of artists that do that and they make it work. I'm just not that good at the 3D yet. So once I get there, I will definitely be sharing any knowledge I gain on that journey with you guys. Happily. I think that'll be all fill light back there. With this glaze, I can also imply fill light. That's something I haven't really talked about. So all I did was darken, and that was kind of a ground color. So I can pick a sky color, lighten it a little bit, and use that instead. And while it's still keeping, remember that I had to lighten it, but while it's keeping the values relatively pretty dark, it is a multiply layer, so it is darkening. It is lighter than the other multiply, so it's technically lightening it, and I'm giving it color. So this is sky fill without having to actually light. Remember that the fill tends to happen where the shadows are, the top sides of shaded areas. What is the purpose of glaze? I think I covered that. Did that? Can you clarify, Demage, if that's what you're after? If you want me to explain more on the glaze. Recently started painting portraits to unwind. Is that what I'm listening to right now? I don't even know. Giant blueberries. Yeah. Giant blueberries. Damn it. It's still fruit. Ah. Let's go ahead and start doing some opaques. And now I kind of have a rough idea of what's going on here. Still not 100% on it. I think one of the things is, you know what, before we start painting opaque, let's start adjusting our composition some more. And this is totally, you can always do, with digital, you can always do this. Whoops. Which is pretty dope. Copy, merged, paste. I kind of want this a little bit more out. I think these guys kind of need to come into the road a little bit more. And since I have the asset already, I'm trying to think more 3D when I do my 2D paintings instead of just doing everything again. So I'll just copy it or duplicate. Throw that in there somewhere. It might not be in the right. I don't know. Let's duplicate it again. Since it's a firm circle, it kind of does all the work for me. Again. And if you've followed my work in the past, you'll know this is very much not something I do. I'm not a big copy paster in this way. Are all the lessons on Gumroad up to date? No, they are not. I have not updated since I think January, so we are pretty behind. I do need to update them. It's been on my list of to-dos, but I just keep getting things that come up. I'm hoping to do that this month, get everything caught up. It doesn't take too much. It's just I need to take a day and focus on it. But yeah, no, they're behind. Apologies. We'll get that sussed out as soon as possible. I'm going to flip horizontal, and that's just because I want to use the lighting that's there as a fill light. Nope. Okay. Pledged this month. Oh, thanks. That's awesome. Welcome. Boom Bop. Posted the glazing question in 2 messages. Okay, good, good. All answered. Yeah, spheres are a bit of a cheat in terms of showing perspective, but that's kind of the idea here, is we are totally cheating. I'm making an opaque layer between all of those circles that I added. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to get rid of this big one. And I'm going to grab... Oops. It's not the one I want. This one. Damn it! Tricksy bastard. There you go. Now, when you grab something like this and transform it up real big, like I just did, you got to be aware that the pixels will transform up too, and the opaque ones will transform up, and they're going to get artifacting that happens when it upreses. But also when you do your edges, they upres too. So the edges are anti-aliased, which means that it's not a sharp pixel cut. There's pixels that have slight alpha to them. So when you upres those, you're upresing those pixels that have the alpha in them, and it makes your edges all blurry. So you have to be really, really careful with that. So let's bring it all the way back in just to be sure. Let's make another circle that's just a little bit smaller. Moving it with my arrow keys now. Selecting inverse, and I'm going to delete those outside edges so that I have a sharp edge now. So you can see, we're going to zoom in. You see that sharp edge? Getting rid. See how it's soft? So that's that upresing artifact that happens with alphas in your paintings. Always be mindful of that. Is the idea behind the spheres to indicate perspective? Yes and no. I mean, they're there and they will create a perspective effect for us, but that was not the initial goal. The initial goal was to have a weird artifact that's sitting in this forest. So there's this photo that I've got of a bunch of mines kind of lined up in a row, and I wanted to do something similar to that, but not exactly the same thing, just to practice. Also, that thing I just warned you about in regard to edges, as you upres, the opposite is not true when you're resizing down. You don't need to worry about your edges. You will get color compression between pixels, but the edges will usually be okay. Rejoin Patreon. Yeah. Well, welcome back, and hopefully you get a good stuff out of it. Back on Patreon. I think with this one I want to imply that it's gone back behind the hill a little bit. Actually, let's do that in two pieces. Do another one. Yeah, so kind of what I'm after here is the weird scene, but also different ways to indicate perspective, and then this particularly challenging aspect of perspective where you have a planar shift where it tilts up and then back over. Basically a hill, or like you would do with a step. It's challenging to make it look good. I am going to group all of my spheres, and I will handle them later. They are not important right now. So we're back to that new layer underneath, and I just want to imply I am using soft brushes and just cheating the shit out of this. And that's okay. That is actually the goal this time. You actually remember episode 1? That's awesome. Good. I hope it has been valuable with your painting experience to join us. All right. Damn it. I wonder what that's about. Whoops. I'm going to leave those shadows for now. I'm noodling a little too quickly here. I haven't completely solidified my lighting, and getting in there and actually trying to change small planar shapes at this point doesn't make much sense. I got to really figure out this light first. Really curious if these brushes will work with the stream and everything going. These are a little bit more demanding texture-wise. Still waiting on the damn power supply for my new computer. I don't think it's in the country yet. But once it gets here, I think a lot of these complaints will no longer be happening. When you're painting with texture brushes, painting your strokes with a little bit of dynamicism and a little bit of animation to them. Make sure to also paint them either painting them along the contour, creating Z depth, or cross contour, also creating Z depth. And the idea behind that is that you don't want to paint completely over textured brushes that have created these striations or lines that hint at that Z depth. So I'm painting lightly, implying these different strokes in order to get that variation that's showing me, perspective depth, and then the zigzag depth that we've talked about at the beginning. And when I paint more opaque on top of all of these, those little hints, those little lines that go back or that cross contour cut something will be freebies that help sell what it is that we're trying to do. And the big key to being speedy and efficacious with your painting is going to be making sure that you don't repaint the same shit again and again and again. And when you're beginning painter, a lot of time is wasted doing that, but it's also good because you're learning. So view it as a learning experience. It's okay to make those mistakes so long as you're learning from them and learn how to avoid them in future. Or study with a teacher that knows what they're talking about and practice what they preach. In the same way that I was talking about using strokes to indicate depth by zigzagging or cross contour painting, you can do a similar thing with your textures by implying variety in your textures, like I just did here with these leaves. When I go back in and I paint opaque on top of that, all those little cuts and lines and things and little undulations of color and value will give me freebie details later. So, and I mean, even all the way back to these round brush, just quick blobs I put down, if I allow them to live in that space and I just continue to draw and pull from them and build on top of them, they will be layered bits of detail that go back. And even really ugly stuff that you wouldn't think has any place in your painting can add to that freebie detail if you let it breathe. Oh, you were searching on YouTube for how to render. Oh man, I'm glad that it came up then. I'm really bad at the SOE, is that what it is? Or SEO, search engine optimization, tags and things. I'm so bad at that. So I'm really glad it came up on a search for how to render. That's amazing. You built a computer with the goals of working and you just gamed. That's okay. That's what's going to happen to me too. I will definitely be gaming on that thing. In fact, I originally put together the specs. My friend helped me build it. We put together the specs so that I could play Cyberpunk. I am so excited for Cyberpunk. It's a game, speaking, Irina, of role-playing games. Cyberpunk was a tabletop role-playing game from like back in the 80s and 90s. And I played the shit out of that too. The danger with using texture brushes. So I've talked about how they can be useful. Is it's very easy to get sort of a super digital looking painting out of it if you don't change them regularly. And I have had the same brush for too long. So let's put something else in there. Play around with that a little bit. I believe these are from the Stalinhog build I did a while ago, so they have pretty heavy canvas texture in them. But because we're painting pretty zoomed out, you can't see it, and also I can't see much detail with all the lights on me. The glare is pretty strong on the screen, unfortunately, but that's okay. Cost of business, right? Creating underlying textures that I'll be building on later by implying the light coming through. I'm bad at marketing. Oh, my friend, believe me, that is something I know very well. I am terrible at marketing. I despise it. And that's it. The reason I'm bad at it is kind of for a reason. I personally hate advertising. I do not enjoy any advertising. I've ad blockers on everything. I turn off. Like if I'm watching a video and it insists that I have to watch an advertisement, I'll just turn it off. I will not watch the video. I just don't need that shit. I don't want to buy shit. If I want to buy something, I'll look it up. Stop telling me what I want to buy. It annoys the shit out of me. I hate advertising. So I figured if I feel that way and that strongly about it, it would be pretty... It's pretty spoopy of me to do... Not spoopy, poopy. Just straight poopy, not spoopy. To do it myself. And so I try to really, really minimalize my advertising. And it's definitely cost me. But that's okay. I can't do it to other people. So really, when it comes down to it, it's going to have to be the SEOs and you guys, word of mouth. Basically, almost all of my progress in all of this has been word of mouth. And I think in a way, me doing Twitch was a way for me to do advertising, but also because that is what this is. At the end of this, I show my Patreon video and all of that. I hate to do it, but I figure, if you've watched this much, maybe you want to watch that. But it's kind of a way to show what I do and have it be something that's not really just a product. It's like it's a community. It's a sharing thing. I don't know if that makes sense. It sounds stupid when I say it out loud, but just how I feel. And I know I'm losing. I lose a lot on it, and I can't compare to a lot of the people that are just experts at that. There's so many great artists that are so good at selling themselves and what they do. And I see them. I'm not stupid. I know that I'm not doing it. But it's by choice. Am I painting ambient light at the moment? Yes, I am thinking about it. So when you're thinking about ambient light, when you're building up a painting from scratch like this, and you're not doing it like we've done characters arena in the past, and like we did the Mother Crow, where I add one light source at a time. When you're doing traditional painting, which is kind of what I'm modeling this off of, you can't do that. Or you can, but it's much harder, and it tends to look more artificial and graphic-y. What you have to do is you're thinking about ambient light, and you're thinking about reflected light and all of the other colors that will be there that aren't there yet. And you're choosing the colors and the values that are appropriate that will help build that out. So I am thinking about ambient light sources, like adding hints of gray and blue to the ground here, and I will be doing with the balls shortly, and the reflected light or the fill light up here. I'm already hinting at that stuff so that when I color pick it deeper into the painting, I don't need to think about it as much. So yes, I'm thinking about ambient light right now. Have I solved all my ambient light? No. I'm kind of just building and building and building and acknowledging when I need to get the ambient light in there. So it's not forefront, but it is there, if that makes sense. Yes, advertising is the worst. I am definitely one of those guys that back when TV was a thing, and be watching TV, and the moment a commercial come on, either turn it off or go somewhere else, mute it. Also, I know it's harsh for me to say that about advertising. I have lots of friends that work in advertising, that do movie trailers and posters and things like that. You know, I get it. I know that there's a whole art form to it. It's just the manipulation factor I'm not a big fan of. But I recognize skill where skill is. It's easier for me to avoid watching it altogether. I know I sound like a dick. Listen to this pretentious asshole. Doesn't like advertising. I know. I'm a monster. I'm a monster. Nope, see? I'm thinking about texturing in order to cover up what I'm trying to do here. No, I can't allow myself to do that. I need to put the right color, the right value, the right shape in the right spot. New layer. The thing is that advertising is for selling shitty stuff. On the other hand, you have an amazing quality and value for money product that you don't advertise. That is true. You are right. In that same vein, my thinking is that if it is good enough, then people will talk about it. At least I hope. And so I give myself undue pressure in that sense as well. Because because the world is full of stuff. I mean, there is so many. If you go on Gumroad and you just type concept art or you know, painting tutorials, there's so much content. So I fully know that I'm doing it wrong. It's just an ethical thing for me, I guess. Still, I'm here. I'm doing this, which actually I've come to quite like. And, you know, I add my little ad at the end. I think that's enough for now. Damn, it is really getting hot outside now. I think it's gone up like 6 degrees. I'm under skylights. That's why I keep looking up, by the way. It's it's quite bright. It adds to that light fill. I have a sip here in chat. Ahem. A great advertisement is usually attached to a bad product. That's very true. Yeah. It's kind of like bragging. It's like that same idea in my head. Like, if you need to brag about it, maybe it's not so great. If you got to talk about how badass of a fighter you are, maybe you're not the guy to throw down. It's the same thing. Doers do. Boy, hold on. I'm sorry, guys. I do declare. Oh, my. I'm thinking the road is too straight now. Kind of shit the bed on that a little bit. I'm gonna bring in some brush. How's Kova? I bet he misses adventurous boat life. Well, Kova seems to be doing all right. She sleeps pretty much all the time anyway. She's really taken to wandering around and sniffing and chewing on different grasses and just tearing up green stuff. So she seems to be pretty happy. To be honest, all of the most adventurous stuff that we experienced on the boat, she slept through anyway. I mean, even when my boat was sinking, she slept through the whole damn thing. Little bastard. I'm sitting there panicking my ass off, trying to keep my boat from going down. Damn dog slept through it. Silly little shit. I'm going to get rid of my lines layer, I think. It's not adding too much. Well, maybe it is. You know what I'll do? I'm going to go in and erase the stuff that's breaking my value key where it's at, or just knock it back a little bit and just leave it in there, because the texture of it is kind of adding just a tad. Let's do here. All right, let's paint back to front again. I've been ignoring that a little bit. For this, let's go. I want to point with a little texture. When you're, I know I've talked a lot about painting large to small with big brushes and things like that, but one of the things that can really help imply scale and depth is using little brushes for distant details. So long as you kind of treat it like I've been talking about, like it's just meant to be this fill texture rather than a rendering. You won't be wasting too much time doing this kind of spotting in the background. Kova says, if I go down, you go down. Fix it, human. Actually, very, very accurate. She is terrible in the water. She swims like a rock. She is the weirdest swimming dog I've ever seen. You've probably seen other dogs swimming or videos of them, and they kind of swim like this. You know, they do their little doggy paddle thing, and they go forward parallel with the surface of the water. Kova, her swimming method is she's constantly trying to climb out of the water. So she swims like this, vertically, with her butt down in the water, and she's constantly trying to climb out. And she'll go towards any surface that looks like something that she can climb out on, which means you get torn to shreds by her little claws if she's in the water and nervous. So, yes, you're very right. If she goes down, I'm definitely going down. Terrible in an emergency, that dog. She's lucky she's so cute. When you're doing these, the hints of sky through branches, it's a wise idea to avoid using the base sky color to hint at it. You kind of want to treat it like you do fire, right? So you have the saturated outer lines, and then you get tighter and tighter on the inside and get it more and more desaturated, or more and more towards, in this case, whatever the sky color is. So the only time you use the true sky color is when you've built up to it. And this hints at all of these overlapping leaves that are in the distance. If you go straight to sky color, it'll look spotty. You want to avoid that. Try to build up to it by using a mix color that's between sky color and tree. It's something I learned with gouache. You really can't use the sky color by itself. Yes, Kova could not pump water. She did not do that. Bull Terriers are ridiculous dogs. They are very funny. They're the gestures of the canine kingdom. Another fun tree trick. Kind of like with clouds, trees, because of all the leaves, it's kind of almost a point cloud. And you can hint at surface changes in that same way. And an easy way to do that is with lasso tool. So we can imply the top edge of a new tree, just like you would with a cloud. And again, depth. One of the easiest ways to get depth is to imply overlap. Let's go in and break it up a little bit. Cheap and easy trees. You want to make sure in that same point cloud tip is to think about the foliage of the tree as a three-dimensional thing. Kind of like if you were to imagine a ball with subsurface scattering. Think about the tree in the same way. It's as though all of that foliage around the branches and twigs is a subsurface style material, like skin almost, except this time chlorophyll rather than blood. Creating that volume rather than just flattening it out. These back ones, these distant ones, I can leave them flat because they're going to be pushed back by the detail of the foreground. But as you move forward, creating a little bit of volumetric aspect to the foliage will help a great deal in implying three-dimensionality in the scene. And texture. Again, it's just easy, quick texture. Oops, that is not the color I want. There we go. I'm leaving the lights of the trees in the distance a little bit grayer, but I do want to bring the sunlight into it. I really want to have more of a vivid sunlight. So as the trees get closer, the light side, the light side of the tree, this is what I get with this seltzer water. It just makes me burp like crazy. The light side will become more and more saturated to kind of bring back that bit of sunlight to it. Again, we can do our I'm thinking right now about how to use these little light keys, these little bits of light that are rim lighting or top lighting some of these trees. And I think I want to use it as a way to push the eye going into the distance. So there'll be overlap of these lights to create this kind of invitation to walk down the path. They're just arrows that point down. Hey, come check this area out. So take advantage of those little gimmies. Because I've decided that my light is coming from, let me actually draw it in here because I think my camera is mirroring. Because the light is coming in, as I've decided, from this direction, more or less, the sun is slightly overcast but not too bad. What I'm going to do is this side will be lit directly by the sun, which means that what we're seeing is the top side surface of the material, which is bouncing light and getting fill light at the same time. On this side, I'm going to be using a more saturated green to imply that the light is hitting the opposite side of the leaves and we are seeing the inside of them, which means subsurface scattering, which means richer color. It's another cheap, easy way to imply direction of light. And the cool thing is we can take that all the way into the sky. It really doesn't matter. Oh, good. I'm glad that you're finding this useful. Another thing that can happen with trees is we can, and this is something I'm guilty of all the time, so I have to think about it, is my visual vocabulary for critters and like weird animal shit. I got tons of things that I can go to really quickly in my head. But the fact is I haven't treated trees with their just deserved respect and I haven't really put in the time to learn a ton of brush and foliage and really examine the shapes and structures and the patterns and rhythms. So my visual vocabulary for greenery is significantly less. It's another reason probably why I don't think that my environments look as good as my critters. It's because I don't spend the same amount of time that I have, or I haven't spent the same amount of time with foliage as I have animals and people. So I constantly try to stop and think, knowing that that's a weakness, how can I make this plant, even though I don't have the vocabulary for it, I try and fake it and think, okay, well, this one's got big, fat, tubby leaves. This one's got pointy, stabby leaves. You know, that I'm obviously an arboreal professional. I know my trees, stabby bits. I'm going to imply depth down at the bottom with a bit of atmosphere. Let's see, what is this layer? Okay. So that just means kind of, again, remember glazing and tinting. So I am basically tinting this area to bring the values together, bring them a little bit brighter. I'm desaturating them a little bit, and the goal is just to make sure that this layer of depth kind of becomes flatter and more distant, so that the foreground can pop in front of it. We're not gonna, I don't even know how long we've been at this, hour and a half. So we won't get to the detailing of the foreground, I don't think, at all in this one, but maybe next week. Actually, that's another good question. Would you guys be interested in more broadcasts per week? Is that something you'd be interested in seeing, like, on a regular basis? Let me know. It's something I'm thinking about. One of the things I've noticed, so that in order to, I'm learning all this Twitch stuff as I go, but in order to get a broader audience, you kind of have to show that you can pull in viewers and things like that. And so they have these different programs for different levels of interaction with viewers in the chat and things like that. And I won't make, I think it's called affiliate is the next level. I won't make that. I'm hitting all of the markers except for I'm not broadcasting enough in the amount of time they want. Like, I'm supposed to be broadcasting 7 times in 30 days, and that's not possible with a weekly. But I don't really want to get into that unless it's something that you guys are actually interested in seeing. You'd watch it. You set your alarm. That's amazing. Thank you. Oh my God. Awesome. If you guys were able to get on my Spotify, I don't know if that worked or not. This song is awesome. I just discovered it. It's this crazy, weird, like, cinematic cover of the song. Yeah, this one's dope as hell. And I think this artist, if it's not the actual producer, and maybe it's the singer, has done several of these. Like, it's like a cover for movie trailers. That's basically the premise of the whole thing, is they do these covers of songs that you know. It's just they're done with, like, that way melodramatic, over the top cinematic trailer audio, and it's just so dope. I love it. Oh, that's a shame. You have to open up another tab for that. Let's see. All right, now I want to cheat a little bit and use the darks that I already have back there in order to imply trunks and things like that. So I'm going to use a, oops, that's eraser. I'm going to use a texture brush to kind of see if it'll work. It may not. No, it's too textury. Let's try this one. So because I've created the atmosphere back there already, all of the heavy lifting is done for the values, and just by kind of erasing and soft blending it back, I can get trunks and other vertical details for a pretty minimal effort. And by blurring the edges, you can kind of do a little bit of focal depth pushback. Just something Arena's been doing pretty awesome with lately. I really love those soft focus paintings you've been doing. That's awesome. You'll have to do a video on that so we can see your thought process there. I'd love to watch that. Now, it may seem like it's a waste of time to spend this much time going into the background and getting the background this refined. And I hear you. It does. Sometimes it feels that way too. But one of the benefits that you get is by fixing the rendering to a certain point in the background and stopping before you over-render in the background. When you start rendering in the foreground, what you're trying to do is make the foreground more rendered than the background so that it's more visually interesting, so that the background kind of melts away. It's not a point of interest. And this is kind of a game that you got to play, finessing it back and forth. But by rendering up to a pretty solid point with the background, it holds you accountable with your renders in the foreground, but also you won't end up having to work backwards. Sometimes if you don't render enough in the background, and then you render a shit ton in the foreground, the background looks awful and unfinished. So then you end up having to render a ton in the background to get it feeling like it matches what you've done for the foreground. And this is a way to prevent doing that and creating way more work for yourself than you need. Basically, the goal here is to do the minimum amount possible, because I am a lazy motherfucker. That's my process anyway. The reason that laziness is there to explain myself is because I don't really like doing this stuff that much. I try to avoid it. But that's also why I wanted to do a study of it, just to show you guys that it's a good idea to work on your weaknesses. And with that said, I will try. I don't know if I'll do a lesson on it, but I will try and do some sketches that show battle scenes like you guys requested on the Discord. I will try to show you my thinking on it. I don't know if I can make a video on it because I definitely don't feel like it's something I have any great expertise on. But I'll definitely get to it at some point in the stream so we can chat about it. Okay, so that background feels kind of like, that's working for me. It's pushed back. There's enough detail. There might be a little bit too much of hard edge stuff here. So I'll just kind of try and scribble it out and get rid of some of that. But I think we're mostly there with the distant background. Kind of feels a little bit like a matte painting for an anime back there, which is cool. I like those. Save, always be saving. Twice a week is good. All right, that's something to think about. Twice a week. That's a couple of hours. I could probably do a couple hours every week. or a couple of hours per session twice a week. What's for the other day, what would be good for you guys? What do you think? Because I felt like Wednesday was a good kind of hump day, middle of the week thing. I don't want to do Saturdays or Sundays. I usually have work or social stuff to do. Maybe Tuesdays might be good, or Monday. You do those renderings for the de-stressing? Nice. Oh, the Wicked Game song is great. Lazy people innovate the most. I agree. And it's very much in what we were talking about last week, that innovation and great creative solutions come from parameters. If your parameters are laziness, you're going to get some solutions. In fact, in a way, I kind of think that when people talk about style, I've talked about this before in in-person classes, and I may have mentioned it in a couple of videos. I don't know. But when people are talking about style, I don't think they're necessarily talking about, when we're talking about real style, it's not about, drawing noses in a certain way. Really, where I think a lot of style, the real deal stuff comes from, is from people's lazy habits. It's the lazy habits. It's their weaknesses that end up becoming the thing that defines their style. And so I would have students ask regularly, how do I make my own style? You don't need to. Your own style will come as a result of your laziness. Your hacks will be part of your style. How you problem solve will be your style. You don't need to try to make a style. It'll happen on its own. All you need to do is learn the fundamentals. Work hard at the fundamentals. Study, study, study. You don't need to try. In fact, I think the best original styles come from places where there was no effort in it at all. It just happened as a result of their work. Make a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and group all of these as kind of my distant background. Oh, you can't group a background layer, if you didn't know. You have to make it a true layer. Control G. Come on now. What are we doing? That's not what I wanted. Oh, you're making me mad. I think I'm having razor hiccups. I may need to update that. Okay, let's work on this ground a little bit more because it's definitely suffering back there. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wednesday's working for me. So I don't know. Maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays might be the way to go. We'll see. Monday or Tuesday. Real style is laziness made to look pretty. Spot on. You've got a book called Color and Light. Oh, that's... I don't know. Did I recommend that to you? That's one of the best books ever. Color and Light, and the companion book, I think it was Imaginative Painting, or Painting from the Imagination. Those are two books that actually made it onto my boat library. So I sold and gave away my entire library of art books. Both of those books made it with me. I still have them. There are must-haves, in my opinion. James Gurney is an incredible teacher. You should absolutely be watching his videos and listening to everything that comes out of that guy's mouth. He is a fantastic teacher. Very thoughtful. Very careful. All right, let's see. I want to do this distant bit. Is this thing on repeat? What the hell? Oh no. It sounds a lot like that last one. Hey, no worries. Thanks for hanging out. Glad you could join us. We'll see you next week, and we'll decide then about future lessons, or not lessons, future Twitch streams. Peace out. Be safe. I'm going in with just an opaque liner brush, but at this distance, details with a liner, they work fine. You really don't need to render out these details too much, providing that there's no raking light across them. If you get the right value for the detail, you get it in the right spot, you don't need to do much more. I am very much, if you're ever interested in learning acrylics, I am very much doing this painting in an acrylic style. So the mentality, the build up, back to front, all of that stuff, the glazing, this is all applicable to traditional painting, what I'm doing here. I do need to, since now we have these distant rocks, or whatever they are, and in play, I have to take them out and start using them. So I think I'm gonna keep them all separate and put on a pixel lock on them, except for that last one. I want to erase out of it a little bit. Pixel lock it. Because these are such definitive shapes with sharp edges, using the pixel lock to paint on top of them basically as a mask makes it a lot easier than it would be to try and render them and add light without. In this case, I'm using kind of a fill reflecty feeling light. I may go back and change this to the blue of the sky, but I'm not sure. Right now I want to hint kind of that light is coming through the trees. When you're doing your blue fill light, always be careful that it's not bluer or much bluer than the actual sky. You don't want to completely break that illusion by making it super blue. That might be too blue for my sky. We'll leave it and let it hang out and see how it feels. But I may end up going back and color changing that a little bit. Okay, let's go back to the ground layer. Kind of the same way I treated the trees. I'm using one side of the grass, implying that grass has been hit by the light and is reflecting it, and then the other grass, the stuff on the right of the screen, I believe for you, yes, is going to be where the light is going through the grass. So one will be cool A little bit more of this sun color in this case, which I've been painting quite cool. And then the where it's getting subsurface scattering, it's going to be a richer, deeper green. I'm going to group these. Yeah, you can't paint on a group. I have to lean in the camera a little bit here so I can see past my glare to see if this is too red. I did want to kind of hint at some fallen leaves and things like that, like this picture has, but one of the keys with detailing your sort of distance, medium distance parts of the shots is to really pay attention and be careful and cognitive of your value relationships. So some of these darks that I have in here are much too dark for this distance. The detail is fine, but you've got to be very, very specific and subtle with these choices. They must make sense or it won't work. For this job, I very much like this brush, which is let's make a new layer so I can show you. It's a hard round. There's no texture, no detailing with it at all. Hard round with, let's pull up the thing. The shape dynamics for size set to an extreme, so it can go very small or all the way up to the size that you see. And just a little bit of transfer. So you can see that it does get a little bit less opaque, but not much. It's great for doing these because it forces you to just make shapes and not try to render. It's very difficult to render with this brush. You can really just scribble with it, but it's great for this kind of effect. Are the darks too dark because of the atmosphere? No. Darks are too dark and lights are too light because of the relationship of the surrounding values. If we're trying to create atmosphere and depth by unifying values, things that are too light or too dark within that area that don't fit that specific cross-section of distance, a cross-section of atmosphere basically, it won't look like it fits. So it's really the dark and light relationship of that cross section rather than atmosphere as a total, if that makes sense. It's kind of like when you're painting, let's jump up to the front here. It's kind of like when you're painting on the light side or the dark side of an image, right? So if I wanted to create details on this light side, I would pick a value that's slightly darker or slightly lighter, right? But if I pick the shadow value from the shadow side and draw up here, it's going to carve out the shape completely incorrectly. Unless there's actually a cut into that shape rather than a surface detail, it shouldn't be that value. It shouldn't be a shadow value. It has to be shadows for the light side. Just like if you were to take the lights to the dark side, it won't fit. You need lights that are relative to the dark side. That is simultaneous contrast. And that's what you use in order to create your details within the greater value key and then the sub-value keys of the different areas. Let's throw that out. I really need a strong pop in this line I'm creating. So I'm going to just hit it real hard, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That kind of works. Yeah, we'll leave it for now. Relative to this color, I want to have a hint of skylight. And I'm just kind of scribbling back and forth and creating zigzags. So again, we're doing layer from distance, coming forward, slowly, slowly coming forward. And as I come forward, I'm paying more attention to the light, more attention to ambient light, like you asked, Irina, and more detail, more contrast, just building, building, building. Each new layer needs to have a little bit more until we figure out wherever our focal point's going to be, which I think will be kind of, let's see, I think this will probably be the focal point right here, including this foreground thing. Kind of not up close, but middle close distance. So that'll be where my details and my interesting punches will be. Okay. This new layer I'm going to put in front of my rocks, because I want to create overlap for these rocks now, or whatever they are, these artifacts. Just a little bit. Don't over detail those distance shots. I'm not even adding a light side and dark side. All it is a single stroke to represent that entire chunk of little leaves or grass or whatever. I want to imply some dappling. Coming a little bit closer to us, so I want to add some saturation to it, but not too much. If you overdo the value difference with the dapple, you can end up making it look super spotty, kind of like what we were doing down here, where the lights, adding a light or even a mid-tone from the light side to the dark side breaks the value key. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Irina. I always worry that I'm too repetitive and boring. I keep saying the same shit again and again. I don't want to do that. One moment, gang. Keep getting buzzes. Okay, so if we look at this, if we're looking at the frame and we zoom in, this feels close enough to done. Like everything is there, just with kind of that framing, ignoring the nearby foliage. But that little vignette, it's feeling pretty solid. We got something that feels in place. It feels three-dimensional. There's overlap. There's lighting that's all behaving, and it's good enough. Let's move on. Let's get to the next step. So, and this is something I have to tell myself constantly. I always end up having to stop because I'm beginning to over-render. Always be careful about that. I want to, let's see. think I want to hint at this grass up here. Continue that implied sort of ridge. But I don't want to render that too much because I know I'm going to put some tree trunks, I'm going to put some foliage in front of that. So I'm not going to render it like I just did with the rocks, which are going to, these spheres that are in the distance right here. Those are, you know, hero props. Those are things that we're going to have to see at the end. This is a dummy prop, which we don't have to see. We just need to know that it's there. You don't need to render the shit out of this stuff. So it can be very sloppy. Kind of like what we did back here. It's not hero stuff. I want to use that distant value to imply the build of foliage back there. I think I'm going to do actual overlap of this with this next level of foliage. So really it's just about filling out this clearing here. Let's get some yellow in. One thing, if you've watched any of my lessons on materials and color theory, the premise that white is never white. It's never just plain white. There's no such thing. Light does not exist in a vacuum. An object that's being lit cannot exist in a vacuum. So ideally, when you're painting foliage, remember, green isn't just green. You must use other colors. Oranges, reds, yellows, blues, everything. Get in there, vary it up with little hints of color in order to help kind of imply that life back there. That's nature. It's never just one thing. You can do sort of a blanket pool of color and value, but if you want to add any texture to it, you got to vary it up just a bit. Too much detail, so I'm just mushing it down. All right, so next level. Said I wanted some darks in front of light and dark overlap. Will create that depth for us here. I want to imply this shadow a little bit stronger, like an origin for it. So I think that's going to mean, in this case, let's add. This is another reason we don't fuss too much with the background. Like we just do what's a bare minimum there, because you never know when you might end up covering it up completely. Happens all the time. Can't be afraid to get rid of something that you've invested that time into as well. If there's something better, you have to do it. No fear. I am using a darker dark down here because I want to imply the overlap with this back here. If I use the same value as the darks of this, they're going to be this. They're going to feel like they're at the same depth. But I don't need to do it. Use that same dark for the entire field that I'm adding, the entire shape. I can go back to this lighter value, which is almost the same as that distant one. You see? You squint at it, it's completely lost. I only need it to overlap in that one spot, so I'm just going to hit that one spot with those darks. I will use that to kind of, that dark value to add some implied branchy details. And I do want to pick up just a little bit. All right, so that's enough in that back for now. And I've raised the tree up to block. I've basically extruded the tree to block that light a little bit better, so that that bit of cast shadow there feels a little more natural. So now let's go in and make this tree make some sense. One of the easiest ways to kind of quickly make sense of trees, especially in depths like this, unify your values even though there are multiple trees. This is glazing again. And I want to pick up some of these colors back here to... I need a background for where that foliage overlaps but doesn't completely cover. So I'm painting in the background or implying that background more. I'm not looking to render. That's not the point of this part. All I'm doing is I'm planting a background as a place for just the contour shapes of that bunch of trees to live. So let's do, I'm tinting the other direction, lightening some of these darks because they're too dark. But I don't want to lose all that texture I put in, so I'm just doing it lightly. To kind of match this side, we're going to have some I'm hatching in accordance with where my light's coming from. Let's make a new layer. Too green. It's kind of this is a tough one because I can't quite see the subtle. There's sometimes the values, especially these darker ones, they're harder to see with the glare on the screen. These might be too dark. I can't really tell. I'll have to check it with the lights off after the stream. When you're doing overlap and depth like this, you got to remember that it's not just the overlap, it's also scale. So as these trees get bigger, or get closer, they must get bigger, the trunks. I kind of want to hint at some things coming out into the road. A little bit of overlap. So there's going to be more background lost. That's okay. We prepared for this. We knew that this would happen. As the trunks get closer, I'm making them thicker and overlapping them, but I'm also trying to imply a greater level of detail, a little bit more chunkiness. We get some questions. This painting creates such a happy feeling. Awesome. I love it. That was kind of the thing. I wanted to do, yeah, that Stalinhog slash... right now for me it's starting to feel like it's getting way more into Ghibli territory, but that's actually really cool with me. It's my opinion on the process that involves clear steps like making line art, flat local colors, adding ambient light, ambient occlusion, direct and reflected lights. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I love that. That's basically how I handle creatures a lot of the time. Maybe not by starting with line art. I'll start with a shapy sketch, more like how we started this, but then it goes to line art, and then I flat, and then I do colors, and it's a very easy way to, it's an easy and organized way to manage your painting progress. And anytime you make management easier for what we're doing, it's better, and it will look more thoughtful and it will look more figured out. With this one, we're basically doing an experiment. We're trying out a different kind of thing for me. It's just an idea of something I wanted to give a shot. I'm trying to keep in mind that these trees relative to these shapes, so trunk to sphere ratio, should match trunk to sphere ratio on this side. So I'm going to have to do something that separates this part a little bit more. It may be like another zigzag of shadow or something like that that delineates there's a break in the depth here, because it's not, they're a little too close to each other. But we'll suss it out. Yeah, so for also in relation to your question, I've been experimenting with Blender, as I've mentioned numerous times. I'm trying to implement it into my pipeline so that you know, it helps my illustrations rather than slowing me down. And so far, I've learned enough. I'm kind of using it basically just to figure out perspective on complex shots. I'm using it for a little bit of base color now and a little bit of lighting, but I still end up painting over it way more. But the last one that I did, I had 6 assignments. The 5 before, I used 3D for all of them to really hammer this and really practice my 3D stuff. But this last one I did in the old way, how you're talking about, with line art, flat local colors, and I finished the sketch for that in like 30 minutes. So it's, yeah, it's a great way of doing it, and I recommend using it. But you can't do it with a traditional painting, or at least it's super hard to do it that way. You're going to need an airbrush and frisk it and all sorts of stuff, which you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. That is some old stuff. Let's get the other side in here. I have decided I need to change something about my perspective here. So I'm going to grab everything I've done here. Copy, merged, paste. I need to get a little bit more altitude on this. It feels too compressed too fast. All right, let's pull back up our trunks. I mean, it'd be just as easy, whoops, just as easy to redraw these, but my laziness is truly profound. Let's mush them up. Oops. Now, real quick, on this same layer, I'm going to mask it. Just test out some bounce light right now. So I'm mixing the concept of atmosphere with now bounce light, so that the bounce light's going to be more bright and more effective, or more efficacious on the actual trunk itself going into the distance. And that's going to help, that killing of the values as it goes back will help create the effect of atmosphere, even though that's not exactly the lighting situation that I'm using right now. Right now I'm using bounce light to do the effect. And it's a very subtle one. It doesn't take much. It just needs to be, it needs to feel darker than whatever it is overlapping, which is that distant bit of foliage. So we can make it feel darker either by darkening it, or we can go behind it and paint a little bit lighter to have contrast. All right. Now we can, now that we've got the trunks in, oops, wrong brush for the job. As objects get closer, that even if it's in silhouette, you're going to see greater detail of the actual contour of the shape. So implying that texture shouldn't take much, just a little bit, but you definitely want to think about it. My goodness, we have gone on a long time. I'm having fun with this one. Hopefully you guys are too. I'm going to continue on it next week, and we'll get into the mid-ground. I still don't think we'll finish it in that time, because this is obviously not the kind of painting that I tend to do with great rapidity. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed yourself, and hopefully you don't mind the upcoming ad following this, and you'll sit through it and enjoy it, because it's good. I don't know. But yeah, looking forward to next week, and by next week I will figure out a plan for a bi-weekly, is that right? Bi-weekly? Twice a week schedule. We'll figure something out so that we can hang out a little bit more and maybe get through these paintings faster, because yeah, spreading them out over weeks just kills my my drive on them. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm always glad to see you guys in here, and great questions. Honestly, the really good questions really help make the stream work. So keep them up. Think of stuff throughout the week. If you encounter things that you want to discuss in here, you know, you're welcome anytime. Ask me anything, all that good stuff. So we'll talk soon. Yeah, as always, paint smart, paint sexy.
Hi there. I'm Izzy, a professional writer, concept artist, and illustrator. I've taught painting for a dozen years or so, on and offline. Many of your favorite illustrators and designers have studied with me or under me, and have gone on to teach in their own right. You're here because, like they did, you want to learn to paint realistically for illustration or concept art. Well, worry not. You're in the right place. Grab a seat. I want you to join me as I explain all the aspects of image making in extremely digestible and clear monthly lessons. Not through the lens of silly how to paint hair or eye demos. That shit is carnival tricks. And you're not really learning anything except an exact way to render one thing in one manner. This is painting mysticism at its worst. Watching these kinds of exploitative lessons won't help you level up with your understanding, Sure, now you can paint sparkly hair, but what if you want to paint a dragon, or figure out how to render a sea of fire, or depict a one-eyed transgender space marine dying in the vacuum of space? Painting and image making are tools of communication, and can be learned by anyone willing to put in some time. Like grammar is for language, light, color, and form literally follow a formula. Painting well is not a matter of chicken bones, zombie crackers, and the ever-dismissive concept of talent. Learning with my series, Izzy's Logic of Light and Color, will give you the tools and understanding so you can analyze light and form in reality and bring it to life in your work. Using this simple system I have distilled will help you harness your art to share your ideas as you've always intended. When we are children, we all draw in symbols. Symbols for our house, our hands, the sun, the grass, our pet lobster. As we grow into artists, we must learn to throw away symbols and begin to draw and paint what it is we actually see. And as we grow further, we learn to paint beyond what we see and what is actually there. Until finally we move beyond this and learn to trim away what is actually there so we voice only what we want. With me, you're going to have to buckle in and maybe take some pain meds, because I'm going to rip out your normal person's eyes and replace them with a painter's eyes. I'm going to restructure how you see and how you understand what you're seeing. I'm going to turn you into a painting machine. Truly, anyone can learn to paint realistically if they can both determine what they're seeing or imagining with basic and straightforward rules. Once you understand the mechanics of light, color, and form in reality, you will have the capacity to paint anything you can see or imagine realistically. After that, the real fun begins. Here are some of the ways you can join me and master the logic of light and color. The very first lesson of my series is totally free on my YouTube channel. In that lesson, I give you the 3 primary rules of light that are the very foundation of painting and understanding light itself. If you do nothing else to make your painting mastery easier, at least watch this amazing little lesson. It will do more for your basic understanding of light than just about any tutorial you can find. When you're ready to get deeper and you feel like you have those first rules figured out, allow me to utterly blow your mind with the next episodes available on Gumroad and ArtStation. As we go deeper into the rules underlying the logic of light and color, I carefully and simply explain important and interesting elements. From beginner to pro, there is an amazing amount of information available. Each concept has been distilled into the clearest explanation you're likely to find anywhere. Like episode 2, where we cover the atmospheric effect and how that relates to light, scale, and distance of objects in reality, and how to render it. Or episode 3, where I hand over the ultimate key to controlling value in your paintings. Episodes 5 through 8 are all about rendering materials. Want to understand the logic behind rendering metal, leather, hair, transparency, damn near anything. I even cover the logic behind painting special effects like fire, neon, or lightsabers in later episodes. The lessons just get deeper and more detailed as I build on the foundations covered in preceding episodes. The 10th gives you the most important rule of composition you'll ever learn to keep your images interesting. The next few episodes cover important painting techniques like my edge control ninjutsu or simplification with the large to small system. We dip a toe in color theory, devote a few episodes to finishing full-blown illustrations utilizing the techniques we've learned so far. Some episodes, like the lighting game or Advanced Exercises 1, the shirt, present cheap, valuable, and practical exercises to give you explosive growth in your development. Episodes 22 through 25 cover painting and illustration, just like I do for Magic the Gathering, from assignment and inception to signing the painting at the end. Each one is full of tips, knowledge, everything to make working as an illustrator easier. Did you enjoy learning how to paint basic materials? Metal, wood, and such? I got 3 whole episodes devoted to the intricate logic behind painting different kinds of skin. After that, more lessons devoted to pumping life into your portraits and original methods for accurately drawing faces out of your head. From fundamentals to photo bashing, Gumroad and ArtStation have every lesson I create available for purchase a la carte. But here's an even better way to learn with me. Stay current with my latest lessons on Patreon for the lowest price available. Monthly support gets my student that month's lesson, a critique or paint over of their finished work, a discount code for 25% off the entire Gumroad archive, and access to the Logic of Light and Color Discord community, where we plan future lessons, share knowledge, and learn together as a team. The absolute best method is to join my Patreon classroom at the Student Plus tier, where you'll get everything I just mentioned and a free episode from the archive every month to accelerate your mastery at your own pace. You've decided to take control of your painting and master Izzy's Logic of Light and Color. Now it's up to you to choose the path that's best for you. I'll see you on the flip side. Paint smart, paint sexy. Hi there.